Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Ron at Becoming Enlightened Together. So, we're going to go ahead and do another weekly read. And this is for Sunday all the way till the following Saturday. It's the entire week, and we're going to pull a rune for each day as well as the overall encompassing energy for that week, which is a little bit more promising than the previous 2 weeks, as this one is actually in the upright. It does talk about journeys and so on, but more of a harmonious and you know I'll just leave it at harmony. I think harmony is the best word for it. Yeah, harmonious means of doing so, either with someone else, like perhaps a vacation of some kind, or whether it is just moving forward in a relationship or something like that. It talks about forward positive movement. Okay, and that is it was in the upright. This is the letter E in their alphabet. I know it looks like an M. It can also look like a W in the reversal, but it is their letter E. Okay? And as I stated, it talks about forward movement, progress, and so on. So horses, carriage, the wheel, things speaking about mode of transportation or method of transportation as well as the actual movement of something. But it also talks about, like a vehicle, progress, change, and changes for the better. Like I was saying before, gradual development of some kind, progress and harmony. Again, utilizing the plural instead of the singular form of horses and so on, which was, of course, for thousands of years the main mode of transportation. So, um, and as a result of that, if you have two horses pulling a carriage or a wagon or something like that, if they're out of rhythm with one another, it's a very, very difficult and uncomfortable journey, for both the rider as well as the horses. And the same thing in terms of a rider, a single person on a horse. If they work together, then the ride can be, pleasant and productive. And if one of them is out of sync with the other or whatever, whether it's the rider or the horse itself, it slows the progress down. It can be actually even very painful. You know. So that's the kind of movement we're talking about. Peaceful, harmonious movement in whatever way that looks to you, the collective out there, okay? Because it will be different for everybody, being a collective, energetic reading that we're looking at here. Now, Sunday's energy is, and that's today's, Arcana in the reversal. Sometimes, it's all backwards, on the screen. But Arcana is the rune that is representative of the goddess, Archta, who is likened in many cases like to Mother Nature or something of that nature. Not Gaia per se, which is the energy or the soul of this entire planet, if you were to look at it from that perspective. Or whether we're a planet or whether we're under a bowl or a firmament, as it's written in almost every religious text, or whatever the case may be. I'm open to anything in terms of truth. And I've done my own experiments for me to question such a thing on a public platform like this, where people would say you were crazy. Well, I can give you some real science and some real mathematical friggin' tests that you yourself could actually conduct, and would question the theory as far as this planet being round with a known diameter and everything else as it's postulated by science. You would see that if that were true, that the experiment would not work, but it does every time. So, and there's many, many other things. And again, I know I have a tendency to get off on many different tangents, and that's just who I am. I apologize. So, I've been taking care of, my father quite a bit lately, and um, not a whole lot of people really to talk to. So, unfortunately, I have to take it out on you guys to some degree. And I try, but he gets bored very, very quickly, and he rolls his eyes and says, "Oh, here we go." And not easy to talk to somebody who's closed-minded, but I grew up with that, so we never had a good relationship. And now that I'm taking care of him, there's a chance of healing you know before the inevitable. I just lost my mom last year, so I made a pact with myself that I would try to make another effort. Even though I can say that it wasn't entirely my fault or anything of that nature that things didn't work out. But the whole reason I left at such a young age was because of my relationship or lack thereof with my family. So, and a lot of us go through that, especially if you again have some type of a journey here. Some kind of a duty that you are here to fulfill. There's going to be a million obstacles, but they are all put there purposely for you to grow from them, to make you better prepared for the reality of this world, where there are a lot of challenges, and I still grapple with that daily. It's like the moment I tackle one, another one takes its place, and it's like you never get a break, you know, or it feels that way. So I guess my stamina, spiritually speaking, is being tested as well. And I relent. I just will not give up. Even to the point of exhaustion and expiration. And it won't be from lack of trying. Alright, so as I was saying, today's energy being Birchka in the reverse, Mother Gaia, who often looks after, both the flora, the fauna, the animals, as well as the young and, the feminine among our species, in the afterlife. So, and I have a connection with nature. I've always loved animals. I love the outdoors and stuff like that. Before I learned about things such as Bigfoot, dogmen and race and all these other freaking cryptid things that are out there, and how many people come up missing every year. I don't necessarily go out to the deepest, darkest bush anymore. So I know it's silly, but what I found is that people are so close-minded to everything that no matter how much mythology, folklore, and even to this day, passed down orally, traditionally from different tribes of Indians, both from Canada, Alaska, the Inuit, as well as many of the Native American tribes. They actually had relationships, either good or bad, with them. And there's a place here I wanted to visit for the longest time. It's called, God, it's just escaped me. I was just thinking Portlock, Alaska, but that's not the place I want to go. That's a place that was literally uh, deserted as a result of their run-in with, Bigfoot and so on like that, early last century. So, I mean, literally an entire town evacuated themselves because people were becoming dead and missing. And, many of the other things that their witnesses have, heard or seen with their own eyes and so on. And the oral traditions, especially in Alaska, are they're abundant. I'll just leave it at that. The evidence is everywhere that these beings exist. So thousands of sightings annually, millions of people that come up missing worldwide every year, but 500,000 in this country alone. We are by far the I guess, on top of the graph when it comes to missing people annually. And many of them come up missing in, the state parks and things like that, where strangely they don't necessarily keep records of those who have come up missing. And, well, I think the best way for you to just watch a video, it's called Missing 911. If you watch that whole video series by a actual ex-detective and everything else, it'll bring you up to speed to some degree as to what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And again, that's a whole nother subject, and I just love talking about so many different things simultaneously. I just get off in la la land. Please forgive me. I know that this is supposed to be for the collective in terms of, having information that they can utilize into their day-to-day. So, Arcana in the reversal. What does it mean? It talks about domestic issues, family issues of every type, not being able to make or meet the needs of your family. Somebody close to you is really in need of some serious help, psychologically, physically, medically. I don't know, but it covers all of that. So it talks about a sense of carelessness, somebody who loses their self-control, having a blurring of consciousness, in and out of reality, blindness and hopelessness. These are the energies that encompass, Arcana. Now, Arcana is the overall energy for today. And we do individual readings per day as well with that as our past energy, so we can see where we're actually at, energetically speaking, versus, or what we need to know at the very least, and so on per day. So that's the way that I'm conducting this. Now, I have no precedent in this as far as daily reads with runes and stuff like that. I'm developing, if you will, my own my own way of doing these types of things. And I'm trying to stick to some degree to the guidelines that I can find in regards to utilizing these properly, and by cleansing them and energizing them regularly as well, and becoming closer, if you will, to them and their energy and so on. So I have 3 complete families, groups, or ayats of old Futhark runes in my bag. So instead of the standard 24, in other words, I have my 74 runes or thereabouts in my bag. That gives me more possibilities for more accuracy as well. It's like having, a larger tarot deck. Instead of the 70 plus cards that are in there, you have maybe 2 decks put together, 140, which gives you an endless amount of possibilities in terms of what the story could actually come out. It makes it more accurate, in other words, or potentially, theoretically, more accurate. And that's what I'm trying to do. So, and I often do get repeats, but not always as a result of that. And that's good. Sometimes that particular energy and what it actually embodies is the perfect description of the energy for that particular day. Okay. Alright, so with that being said, Monday's energy is that of Degas. Now, Degas 2 is in the reversal in this particular case. Okay. Now, Degas in the reverse, like many of these runes in the reverse, hold a less or a lower vibrational energy. So it talks about somebody who has perhaps the need to put their attitude in check or to really examine their thinking. Talks about somebody who is going to be going through radical changes, not wanted or, in their opinion, needed, but the universe says otherwise. So talks about the completion or the ending of a cycle. We've been seeing that potentially coming up in our lives for quite some time now, for months. So some of us have already stepped over that finish line. I myself am somewhere in between. I'm like stepping into the finish line, but I haven't broken the tape or anything yet. So many others are out there, and they're still in the race. Okay. So again, time is fluid. It's going to be different for each and every one of us out there, but there is definitely something in this particular exchange of information that I'm providing you that you may need. Okay, and that's just the way that all of this energetic manipulation or exchanges. That's the way it works. So it's not just for us. And even in the Norse belief system, we are basically told many, different ways and so on, by, no less than Odin himself, that we are to keep that energy flowing, give to others, to help others, help the community, help your village, that kind of a thing. So brotherly love, I mean, it doesn't sound like, the kind of Viking attributes that Hollywood would have us all believe, of course, but they were quite civilized in many ways. Being a Viking was more of a, profession or a way of life than it was an actual people per se. I mean, they came from Iceland, Scandinavia, and Greenland, from Germany, and they're from all over the damn place. So, the ones who actually went about and uh, did what Vikings do, So, anyway, whole nother story. Now, Tuesday's energy is that of Lagus. Now, Lagus is one of only 2 runes that's actually in the upright for this week. So, for Tuesday and also Thursday, we have the upright. Everything else is in the reversal. Now, this is a good rune to have in the upright. And it talks about, things that are basically water-based or emotional in general. This would be like the Cups cards in Tarot, where we talk about a person's emotions, their love and affection, or lack thereof, in a particular scenario or case. And that's what we're talking about here, too. It's in the upright, so it's the flow of emotions. It could also be, sometimes we get clogs in the drain, or things stop moving. Okay, so emotions can be bundled up and everything else. Maybe it's talking about the need to release certain emotions, things of that nature. Okay, and this is what we're seeing for Tuesday's energy. It talks about intuition. It talks about things that are unknown, psychic abilities, psychic feminine. Talks about a person's dreams and interpretations. Talks about healing and renewal, life energy, the knowing of certain mysteries, maybe your own destiny. Talks about things hidden. Talks about the underworld itself. But it also refers to things such as success in travel or acquisition. So we see the word stagnation quite a bit in this, so even though the overall energy speaks specifically about journey, about moving. Okay, so it's telling us this is the energy that's available. This is what we need to do. We need to make a decision, and we need to stick by that decision, good or bad. Because going back and forth stuff is what I'm seeing here is it's that you're just spinning your wheels, basically. I mean, whoever you want. Now, Wednesday, what we see is the god Freyr's mighty rune, and this is called Ingwas. Ing was another name for the twin brother of Freya, Freyr. Okay, and Freyr is the great earth god. Now, unfortunately, this rune is in the reverse. So, as any rune that would typically be in the reverse, especially one that represents a god or a goddess, it can be pretty, it can be difficult, to say the least. But talks about completions of something, the ending of a cycle once again, limits or coming full circle in something. It talks about blindness and hopelessness. So, and as we're going to get later on down the line here, it becomes more and more dire. So, I mean, the next rune is one of the 2 that is in the upright, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. So, Thursday's energy is that of Manas in the upright. Okay? Now, Manas talks about man, mankind, humans, humanity, talks about connections between people and so on. So, friends, enemies, things of that nature. It talks about your attitude towards other people and theirs about you. Um, Talks about altruism. It talks about one's intelligence and forethought. It talks about a person's skills and their abilities, their awareness of things, their understanding of the divine nature of things or structure, that they will be actually receiving some sort of aid or cooperation very, very soon. All of these things are reflected in the energy of Venus in the upright. So it's a very positive rune. So Tuesday and Thursday, we have a break in this very negative overall energy that still seems to be speaking about either some kind of test that the collective themselves are going through right now in regards to these karmics, or maybe the karmics are being used as a means of helping you to learn a certain lesson or what have you. Or they themselves may be the ones that are being described here. It's hard to pinpoint when we're talking again of some kind of a general energy here, because it's encompassing the overall energy that's most prevalent at this moment. Okay? Now for Friday's energy, what we have is the same rune that we have for the overall energy, which is Ehwaz, but it's in the reverse this time. So Friday's energy is not very promising. It talks about very long journeys. And some of us have been on a very, very long journey, or the cycle itself that we've been, we're on the verge of actually finally completing has been extremely long. And we're talking about, could be very well a decade plus. Very long cycle. Okay. So it also talks about, bad timing, perhaps changes that are craved in your life. And if you're going through karma, that's very, expected. Of course, you want the karma to stop, but you've earned what it is you're going through. So try to find the lesson in it. The faster you do that and you start applying the necessary changes, the better off you will be. The faster you'll get through that lesson. And that's the only advice that I can give to you from my own experience. You fight it, and it becomes that much worse, and it persists. Got to learn how to go with the flow. So it talks about restlessness, feeling confined, maybe a sense of reckless haste, feeling something needs to be done, but not thinking it through and just acting, reacting, whatever. It talks about mistrust, and it's mistrust among all those that you may have called friend, family, or whatever. Maybe you're seeing them differently now. It talks about disharmony to go along with that mistrust. It talks about betrayal as well. So either you have been betrayed, maybe you've been betraying others, probably both. So again, this feels to me as though I'm talking to perhaps a cross watcher, maybe a karmic, somebody who's going through it and trying to figure things out. And from what I can see, somebody who just does not want to accept their responsibility. They're fighting it. But, Spirit is relenting. They are very gently reminding them that this is for them, so they will stop, smell the coffee, so to speak, and really start to do that shadow work that they have been putting off for so long. Now, there's also some indication that somebody out there is actually going through and doing their shadow work presently, but they're not as far along as they believe that they are. They need to continue at it and realize it's a daily thing for all of us. We all have to do this. And it becomes less of a burden when it becomes like the very first thing that you do. For me, I meditate before I even get up out of bed each and every day. I don't even get up to do the get in the full lotus and all that kind of stuff. I find it's nice to be able to do that throughout the day. Of course, you can meditate anytime, but even in your conscious day to day, you can still do it. It becomes a practice, and you should practice doing in different scenarios, not just, when you first get up or you first go to bed or whatever the case may be. But I want it to be the first act that I do each day. And I do that by aligning all 9 chakras, not 7, all 9. I also have, the soul star above your crown chakra, and I have my earth star chakra, which is that which, resonates with the actual crystalline grid of the earth, so to speak. And then the regular 7 chakras, from your root all the way to your crown. And I align those each and every day without fail, each day. Sometimes I'll spend as much as an hour, hour and a half doing it. Sometimes, 20 to 30 minutes is all I need. So, and I strongly suggest the same for anybody that's out there. Remember, this is a balancing act, regardless of what other people say. I mean, I've already proven this to myself many times over, and I can do it through dogma, I can do it through science, and just argument's sake. I can say that we are here basically to balance things out. Our inner, our outer, our masculine, our feminine, our light, our dark, all of that kind of stuff. We don't deny it, we don't pretend as they don't exist, but we control them, they don't control us. Okay, enough lecturing. Now, for Saturday's energy, what we end up having is Wunyo, but Wunyo also came out in the reverse. So it's ordinarily a rune that talks about joy, blessings, bliss, ecstasy. I mean, we're talking about, the most explicit of experiences that are joyful and good for us. Those are the things that it represents in the upright. So in the reverse, you can imagine. Okay. So it talks about a strong dissatisfaction, misery, talks about fearfulness and impatience. Excuse me. Someone who's extremely headstrong. Somebody who's basically maybe in sorrowful feeling or dealing with some form of strife, feeling alienated or alienating themselves, some form of deliriousness. They may be knee-deep in many types of intoxications, to drugs, to sex, to alcohol, to whatever, It does talk about possession by other forces. So if they're really down that low, they have opened themselves to even more manipulative and evil forces or energies that exist. So, which means they're going to have to fight that much harder. And if you need prayer or whatever the case may be, and you have nobody else to reach out to, then again, I make myself fully available to you. Also, the person that is being described here has got a impractical sense of enthusiasm. They're pretending they have this mask, and this mask is crumbling all around them, but they are still trying to put it on and appear one way in front of their peers, but internally they are completely falling apart. Okay, that's what we're seeing here. So they have this sense of rage inside, frenziness inside, energy that has to be expressed, or they're about ready to explode. So a sense of feeling berserk, or ready to just, really go off the deep end is the way somebody is feeling. And again, this is the overall energy for the week. So this is 3 weeks in a row where, unfortunately, we've gotten less than favorable energetic readings to share with the collective. And I know that's not what they want to hear, but for those who care about truth more than just being entertained, then I'm hoping that this will not fall upon deaf ears, but could be a blessing, and not a curse or a hindrance to somebody out there. All right, so that's what I have for the week, and as always, I wish only the very best for everybody that's out there watching. I don't care whether you're collective or karmic alike. We're all in this journey, so I pray for your victory as well, and that we will meet someday to do battle once and for all. Okay. And of course, yeah, I just mean that in a kind of, it's a Nordic thing, kind of way, but whether you believe in that, Christianity, or whatever you believe in, because if anything, I'd be considered an omnist. I see truth and non-truth in every belief system, every one of them, so to some degree, and many of them utter very, very similar thoughts, dressed up in a cultural, blanket or whatever, but those are the things that I believe are truths for all of us. That's how I determine the real truth. Otherwise, it's simply opinion, and somebody's put it out there and is accepted as truth without having any real validity or verification. And we shouldn't give away our beliefs and our sense of who we are, what we are, and what this is all about to anybody else. We are the ones responsible for what we believe and how we respond to that belief. So we shouldn't give it away so easily and so eagerly. Okay? I know that commands a certain amount of discipline and everything else on our part, but we need to practice a sense of stoicism, in order to bring back that which has seemingly been stolen from us long before we were ever born into this reality. Okay? Everything is already set up, so they can steal from you literally and do it in a way that's, I guess you could call it legally, though it doesn't mean it's moral. And you're never the wiser for it. And for anybody like me that would come along and try to tell you these things, you would think was crazy, even though I have all the validity, I have all the proof, I have their very own words that can show you and prove these things to you, but you won't listen, or a lot of people won't listen. And again, that's just part of the journey that many of us are on here. Every feature of truth or faith or whatever the case may be along the millennium that we've been writing about these things had more or less to go through the same thing. There is always some type of ridicule or opposition that's set up against you. That's to test your resolve, as well as, to test the truth. Because no matter how convincing they may seem at first, inevitably their premise is based upon nothing at all solid. So it starts to crumble. And when it crumbles, then their downfall becomes your uprising. You just have to be patient enough for that day to come. And I know it's not easy. This is a very difficult test. If you're going through it, count yourself blessed. As hard as it is, because that means that you were thought of very highly in the spiritual realms. Anyway, I could go on, as you all know, and I don't mean to talk your ears off. I apologize. I just get a little lonely sometimes, I suppose. So take care. God bless, and I'll talk to you again soon.